Hello again, guys. Right, today we're testing SLI Titan X's. As some of you will be aware, I reviewed the Titan X with the 1440p ROG Swift G-Sync monitor yesterday, gave a fair description, and today I shall be doing the same with SLI Titan X's and the same monitor, 1440p ROG Swift G-Sync. Before we get started, I'd just like to say thanks to all the guys on Overclockers for the nice comments, all the guys on YouTube, and all the guys on midlifegamers.co.uk for all the nice comments. Really appreciate it, guys. Cheers. There was a couple of comments that stuck out for me, which was, could you make the on-screen display bigger by Raven X and Disco P, and make it clear what each one is, which I've done, and another one by Darket, which was to play more games. So I've tried to squeeze a couple more in. Obviously it's something you want to see how it runs, how smooth it is, if there's hitching, stuttering, and what the temps are. So really I've tried to squeeze as much in as possible and show you what's actually happening on screen. So not too many games obviously, but a few there. Okay, so on to the review then. I thought I'd start off with something simple like Watch Dogs. Very demanding game still, very beautiful game, it really does look good. It's another Ubisoft, Ubisoft, whatever you want to say. Ubisoft, there we go, I've got it, Ubisoft. That's for you, TNA. Yeah, very demanding game anyway, and runs very well on SLI Titans. Frames are not particularly high. Everything's turned up to the max on every game I try, so there's nothing left short. Everything's really high. Right, so you can see temps, that's sort of sitting around 72, 73 degrees centigrade. That's pretty much as high as they go, but because of the 1-to-1 fan profile I'm running, that's 72, 73% on the fans, and that does incur quite a bit of noise on these cards. So I've got a nice slot in between, there's a big gap in between, there's no real scrunching up of the cards. And the cards, in my case, it's an XSPC H2 case, which is absolutely humongous. They're actually upside down, so the fans are facing the sky sort of thing. I'm not sure if this makes any difference to cooling. I can't really say it's going to make much difference, all bar 1-2 degrees centigrade perhaps, but I've got good airflow in the case, all the sides are on, all the gaps are sealed, so good airflow coming through and good general cooling. I wouldn't ideally like to run these cards in SLI in a small case. They're going to throttle quite a bit, I could imagine. The heat's soon going to get hot. There's a very big chip, 600mm squared I believe, which is very big, and it's going to take some cooling. So if you've got a small case, just be aware of SLI and the pitfalls and the extra temps, especially on the top card. You've got all the heat from the bottom card rising up, so just be aware of that. Okay, so that pretty much covers the heat and noise of the Titan X's in SLI. Anyone who uses a reference cooler knows what I'm talking about. Nothing that can't be coped with, and in fact reference coolers are better for SLI, so if you're going to stay on air, stay with reference coolers and put a pair of earphones on. If you want to have a lull moment, just look at that VRAM usage, 10 gigabytes being used here roughly. I did play this on the 290X and yeah, it was madness. It couldn't play it on full details for 1440p. It just didn't have the VRAM. Anyway, no issues with smoothness in Advanced Warfare, and plays very nicely on a 290X with lowered settings, plays very nicely on a single TX with maximum settings, plays very nicely with SLI max settings. And back to the old age question of, can it play Crysis? We've all seen that written, we've all heard that said. The answer is, with SLI, yes. On a single card it was hitting around 35 to 40 frames per second with everything set to max. To be fair, on the G-Sync it played really nicely, very smooth. and although the frames were pretty low, sort of sitting 32 to 35 at times, I've since found out that G-Sync does something very clever. The G-Sync module in the back of the monitor, it's got a frame buffer where it stores the last scene frame, so when the game is underneath the monitor's refresh rate, if it's, let's say, 30 frames per second, the monitor's refresh rate is 35 frames per second at the minimum, it will then start drawing the last frame, so it makes for real seamless transitions and everything runs smoother than what it would do normally. That's a real plus for G-Sync. Just thought that worth a mention here. Thanks to PCPer for that info. That was an enjoyable video I watched this morning, and some good info in that. That's worth a look. If anybody wants to go and find out more, go and do that. Okay then, to answer that question, yes, SLI can run Crysis 3, and so can a single card, as long as you got G-Sync. Right, Thief running in the background. God knows why. I just thought I'd put it on. It's a pretty game. It's still quite demanding. It's horrendous really. I don't really have much to say about it. Gameplay is nice and smooth. Shame I couldn't say the actual the game is anything to go by. I really detest this game. I just shot him right in the face with an arrow. Why isn't he? Look, shoot! Look. Oh yeah, yeah, because that happens. Guess I'll die there then. Right, let's cut that one short. Right. On to Far Cry 4. Very disappointed in this, to be honest. When I put MSAA, anti-aliasing, I'm not going to say aliasing, anti-aliasing, it was flickering badly, really badly. So I had to turn down to SCAO or something like that. I'm not too sure what it was in the menu, I can't remember, just to get rid of the flickering. Anyway, we've still got 8 times MSAA on, and it's playing very nicely, it's playing very smoothly, no stuttering or juddering, and most of all, no complaints. That's what you want when you're gaming. You want your cars to do what they're told, do as expected, and give decent performance, especially when you're paying over £860 each for one. I've tried to pick out some of the most demanding games I've got, which I think I've done pretty well. One of my favourites is still Batman Arkham Origins. I can play this all day long. It's very demanding. I've got physics on high and all the settings on max. Now, a point I want to get onto is GPU usage. Some of the games I've been playing, not all of them, but some of them, you'll notice GPU 1 isn't always at 99%, GPU 2 isn't always at 99%, and this is where the bottleneck is kicking in. This is the CPU bottleneck. Now, to get rid of that, I'd really need to get my CPU up to 4.6 at the minimum, 4.8 perhaps. I used to run at 5 gigahertz for benching, but that soon got hot, and that's not an ideal clock for everyday use, and not a clock that everyone can run. So a 3930K being bottlenecked on a pair of SLI Titans at 1440p is going to happen a fair chunk. This is why I'm looking forward to DX12. That's going to be a big plus for the CPUs, and we should see some good performance gains. One of the things I did note on AMD was running Battlefield 4 and seeing my CPU usage drop from 60-70% per core down to 30% on all the cores. So if DX12 can do anything like that, there's going to be good times for all of us, and it's not proprietary either, so everyone gets the benefit. So Assassin's Creed Unity, that's one of my favourite games. I've played this a lot, playing the Dead Kings DLC at the moment. I got it free because of all of Ubisoft's mess ups. They kindly gave the DLC for free. If you notice on this game, the temperatures are hitting 77 degrees on the top card. That's a good sign that the GPU is doing as it should. It's hitting more or less 99% all the time. And Assassin's Creed Unity is a game that plays very smoothly. Not particularly high frame rates all the time, but no complaints whatsoever. Okay, as we're running SLI, I'll talk a little bit about potential problems of SLI. We've all seen it at one time or another, guys who run more than one card, where you haven't got an SLI profile from NVIDIA. So basically your second card is redundant. This is always one of the pitfalls of SLI. You have to wait for NVIDIA if you're not skilled in NVIDIA Inspector. Luckily I've had a little play with that. I understand it a fair chunk and can sort out my own profiles, but not always. Sometimes it just makes the game worse, so you're better off sticking with the one card until they bring out a profile. I've already mentioned the heat issues. If you're running a small case and you want two cards in there, you're going to potentially run into some heat issues with the cards throttling and cooking everything nicely in your case, which is not what you want at all. And of course bottlenecking, that's another issue you're going to potentially run into. If you've got two super fast cards like Titan X's, you've got all the VRAM, you've got all the horsepower, but you might not have the CPU to cope, so just be aware of that as well. Righty-oty, we're getting near the end of the review now, so I'll give my closing thoughts on running SLI Titans X's with the Asus ROG Swift G-Sync monitor, and it's a very, very pleasurable experience. Everything works well, everything runs nice and smooth. Potential SLI issues which I've mentioned, potential heat issues which I've mentioned. Make sure you've got a good case and you won't have a problem. Would I recommend running SLI Titan X's with 1440p? No, I wouldn't. Just buy the one card and you'll be set. Would I recommend SLI Titan X's for 4K? Absolutely. You've got less CPU usage, so you're going to see less of a CPU bottleneck there. 4K's not quite as demanding on the CPU as what 1080p is, 1440p is, but I won't be returning my cards. I shall be keeping them. I might well go 4K. Asus are bringing out a 4K monitor soon. That's piqued my interest a little. I wouldn't mind a bigger screen if anyone's listening, any of the big monitor manufacturers, but I'll still like to have G-Sync with it, please, so pay attention. Anyway, thanks for watching again. Comments as always very welcomed, and please subscribe to see more of my videos and reviews. Thanks again, bye bye.